Hello, my name is Harold. This is TechonTech, and today we're going to be, we're going to be benchmarking a bunch of USB drives. And not just benchmarking, we're going to kind of like drag race them a little bit. And the reason being is it's awesome to have really, really fast drives. Well, let's just say I've got the fastest drive here, and it's so fast it will blow your mind. But to really show you how fast something is, I kind of got to run you through the other ones. So let's start with our contenders. On the left there, you've got the green one. That is a standard USB 2.0 drive. This one is a high capacity USB 2.0 drive. That high capacity one is 2 terabytes, but the problem when you do that much space is if you actually transferred at its rated 10 megabytes a second, it would take days to transfer stuff to that whole drive. So that's actually kind of what prompted the problem we're having. The last one I have is a series of... Actually, I gotta pause this for 1 second. A series of USB 3.0 drives, or USB 3.0 and 3.1. But then I have the fastest of all of them. Well, let's just get started, and we'll kind of just show you how this is gonna go. So I've got each of the drives ready, and I've got a computer that we're going to use to test them. There's a couple of things I want to let you know about the testing before we get down to it. The first thing you need to know is each of these drives is formatted in extended FAT or exFAT, and the reason being is we ran a bunch of testing when we formatted these, and the way to get these drives to their fastest, I should note the FAT32 you can't actually use over a certain size anyway, so that was kind of out the door. And then the next option is NTFS, but NTFS versus exFAT, it was no contest. Every single test we ran, exFAT was better and faster and more stable. So when you're formatting, this is the first treat of the day that I want to give to you guys. exFAT is the best format to have your thumb drives in if you can do it. Some can't. Some programs require that you format in other formats. But if you can do it, exFAT is always the best, most stable, fastest way to do a thumb drive. And for somebody who does a lot of transferring, this is great information. So let's go ahead and get on with it. The first drive that we're going to do is the standard USB 2.0 drive. That's this one right here on the screen. I've got it plugged into the side of the computer. Let's refresh that so we can get that on the list, and we're just going to benchmark it. Now, the USB 2.0 is rated for about 10 megabytes a second roughly. It'll often do more depending on the computer it's connected to. I think this one in particular will do 15 megabytes writing and about 30 megabytes reading. I should note that it was about a third of that when we were doing it in TFS. So as you can see from these write speeds, it's doing about 16 megabytes by 30, and that's fine when you only have 32 gigabytes of stuff you need to do. The problem you run into is when you get into a drive like this. I'm plugging in the next drive here. Hold on 1 second. Let me go ahead and show that on the screen. This is a high capacity USB 2.0 drive. In fact, you might ask how high of capacity, and I'll show you. This drive is approximately, that's interesting. Doesn't seem to reflect the full capacity of the drive. Give me just a second. Let me take a look at something while we're doing this. It may be that the partitioning on this drive was not set up properly. Yeah. Okay. So it's D. So it is exactly 2 terabytes. But yeah. So the problem is with this one, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to just run this through the same benchmarking. Oh, not this one. We're going to run it through the same benchmarking we just did with the last drive. But the problem is, even at its fastest, even if we get the same 15 megabytes a second read and it'd be 15 write and 30 read, it would take like 16 hours to fill up 2 terabytes. That's insanity. You can't do that in any conceivable way. So that's kind of what set me on this testing I needed a bigger, better, faster way to do a drive. And 2 terabytes at this speed. I should also note that it's not your imagination. This thing is just pitch slow. In fact, actually, I don't think I remembered to check if this thing was formatted properly. If this thing is still in FAT32, or it's only writing at like 5 megabytes a second. That's actually pretty bad, to tell you the truth. Let's see what format it's in. It is NTFS. Okay, well that's why it's in NTFS. That's why it's writing so horribly. Let's back that off. Let me reformat this real quick in a format that will actually work properly. So let's do that. Let's close that. Let's refresh that list. Let's go ahead and pump this back in again and then run it. Sorry, NTFS in all of our testing was just absolutely horrible. It was like 30% slower in some tests. So if you're doing a USB thumb drive and you want to get the most performance out of it, you generally want it in exFAT. All right, we're going to give this just a second. For a drive that's got that much space, it may take a second to write. So while I'm doing that, let me show you our next challenger. See, after we get past these drives, we're going to get into, and these are all battle tested drives. Like, these are all super battle tested, heavily used. Like, these are awesome drives, 100% guaranteed working. Looks like our testing is coming back, but it's not coming back much better. Yeah. Here, let's go back to external computers. You can see it's writing a little bit faster in some regards, but it's just not doing very well. Can you imagine trying to fill up 2 terabytes when you can only write at 5 or 6 megabytes a second? That would just be absolutely horrible. Of course, then this drive I purchased, it was a really, really cheap drive, and sometimes you just can't expect much from that. Yeah, we're getting about 5-6 megabytes a second write and about 22 read. That's horrible. You could not do 2 terabytes only being able to write at those speeds. So obviously that was not going to work for me when I'm doing like large file stuff. So that was a high capacity 2 terabyte drive. The one on the left, the green one, is the 32 gigabyte. The one in the middle there, the one with the silver cover, that one is the 2 terabyte high capacity one. And as you can see, it just bombed on our testing. So let's move on. Let's get to something better. Now the next one is going to be a USB 3 one. It's actually the blue one that I'm plugging in right now. Now that is a USB 3.0 drive. So now we're getting into real power. And this computer I've got it connected to is a USB 3.0 port. Keep in mind, when you plug these in, you have to, if they're USB 2, you generally, well, it doesn't matter what plug you plug it into, but if it's USB 3, like one of these, you really need it plugged into a port that says SS or says USB 3 on it. So very important if you want to get the most out of it. Let me go back to the testing here. We've got this plugged in. Let me double check the formatting on this drive to make sure that it's formatted. Yep, we got exFAT. Now let's see what a USB 3.0 drive can do. Oh, no, wrong drive. All right, let's check this one out. Oh yeah, it's mad because it doesn't know what kind of vendor it is. It's actually a Micro Center drive, but all right. So we've got the USB 3.0 one plugged in, and look at this. 88 megabytes, 100 megabytes, 117 megabytes. The read and write speeds on this are like night and day. It is amazing how much faster it is. So as you can see, we're actually doing pretty well. About 110 megabytes, 100 megabytes read and write on that. I think that's within spec. I have to check real quick. Let's see. USB 3.0 speed. USB 3.0 can do up to 4.8 gigabit a second, or approximately 600 megabytes. We may be running into a bottleneck on this computer. We're going to find out right now, because what we're going to do is we're going to switch it to the black one right there. And that black one is a USB 3.1 drive, and we're going to find out right now if we're running into a bottleneck on the computer. I know it was going to eventually happen at some point, but we may already should be USB 3. I'll tell you what, let's try this USB 3.1 drive and let's see what it can do. Nope. Okay. All right. Nope. The bottleneck was not the computer. It was definitely the drive. So this is awesome. This is a USB 3.1 drive. Now, obviously, the faster memory, you'll notice how it starts out at 400 megabytes a second and it just really loses speed as it gets going. Well, what a lot of thumb drive manufacturers will do is they will put faster memory in the front and slower memory in the back, or they will have like a DRAM cache that can be written to be faster and then will be slower as you get later in the process. I'm actually a little disturbed by how slow this drive has gotten. Holy cow, it's almost as if, yeah, it must have a DRAM cache on it, and it must have filled that up almost instantly. It's almost sombering how slow that's gotten. You know what, let me stop this one, and let me see if that other, the 3.0 drive suffers from the same problem. Hold on, USB-D. Let's benchmark the because this one was also made by Micro Center, and it would be interesting to see if this one eventually loses the capability as time goes on too. As wow, that drive really died as it got over a certain degree of speed. These are all within reason. I mean, if you're going to do larger files, if you're doing it at 100 megabytes a second, at least it's kind of bearable. That one's actually looking pretty good, and it's looking pretty consistent. It is a little bit weird that it just dropped off so much on that other drive, but, well, that just may be what it is. Okay, so this one is actually dropping down a little bit, but largely it's holding where that other one didn't. So those are some interesting results nonetheless. I still tout USB 3.0 better than, or as a better alternative to USB 2.0, but let's get to the fun one. You see, what I settled on is that you could do USB 3 and USB 3.1, and you could do high capacity USB 3 and USB 3.1. Although before we do that, let's take a look at our results. It looks like yeah, as it's gotten to the later parts of the memory. Oh, okay. Also, you'll note, okay, so what it's been doing is the size of the file has also been changing a little bit, so that can cause differentiating characteristics with the drive too. You know, in some ways that USB 3.0 drive performed better than the 3.1 drive. It's really interesting. But I'm going to show you right here, right now, because this is the real bonus of this, how I got the fastest possible drive ever. And hold on just a second. I'm going to switch screens real quick. You might see something a little bit odd, but just kind of bear with it because we're switching over to the computer I'm recording on. Give me 1 second, and we're in. Wait, are we in? Yes, we are in. Let's go ahead and let's do this one. Now, the fastest way to do this, and what I settled on doing, is a 2 terabyte NVMe drive in an external enclosure. That is, if you look over here on the right, oh, it's not doing. Hold on, let me fix the screen a little bit. Sorry, you guys can't see what I see. I didn't realize that, so I fixed it real quick. On the right hand side, the fastest and best way to do a USB drive. And this is it. This is the point of making this video and giving you all this information. This is the reason for it, and this is the fastest way to do this. Now, I needed a couple of things. First, I needed a NVMe drive, a high capacity. So what I settled on was a 2 terabyte NVMe drive. Something like this Silicon Power, only 2 terabytes. And I put it in a external enclosure like this one from Seabrant, because what it does is it supports USB 3.2 at approximately 1 gigabyte a second, or 10 gigabit per second, but that's approximately 1 gigabyte per second. In fact, let me go back and let me show you what this looks like. So this is the external enclosure. It's got 2 terabytes. Just kind of like that silver one that I had previously, except its transfer rate is insane. And that's what we're doing, is I want to show you the transfer rate on this. In fact, we're going to switch back over to that. 1 second. All right, let's run the test. I want to show you what this thing can do real quick. Now, funny enough, this thing shows up as a SCSI drive, which is kind of odd, but this is the cream of the crop. This is the fastest of the fastest. You cannot go any faster than this right now at its best. And that is, at my peak right here, I got approximately, on the smallest file types, there are a couple of caveats to this. These were smaller write types and are generally easier for the drive to process. And it was probably while it was filling up the DRAM cache. But at my peak, I got approximately, 1 gigabyte a second. You know, I have to say that when I'm transferring larger amounts of larger files, it does slow down a bit. And I will also say that on the right hand side here, these Seabrant drives, when it comes to consistent reading and writing, they tend to slow down a lot compared to the cream of the crop, not Seabrant, Silicon Power drives seem to be slower overall than there are doing faster ones. So if you wanted to do this right, what you would do is you'd get a 2 terabyte Samsung Pro and you'd couple it with a USB 3.2 Seabrant, and what you would end up with over here on the left is, you see this bar, how it just kind of drops down, is you would see that it would consistently be able to hold a higher transfer rate for longer and be able to do longer amounts of information. Now, that said, I'm still not complaining. The speed at which I can transfer files to and from this drive are just insanity. Look at this. Up to 1 gigabyte a second transfer rates. And then on some of the bigger, harder files and stuff like that, it does slow down a little bit. I think I've averaged a couple of 100 gigabytes a second, but there's a couple of things you need to know. One, you have to have a port on the motherboard that supports USB 3.2. So there's only like one port I can plug it into to get this. In fact, I have an Asus. This is a Tough Gaming Pro, something like that. And there's a very specific port on the back of this thing to be able to utilize. I'm trying to see if I can find a picture of the back of a motherboard here. See if I can get some images here to show you. Yeah. Let's see if this will work. So, right, if we get to the back of this motherboard here, this one probably also additionally only has one port that can do it too. This one might have 2. Let's see. I've got them color coordinated. Probably these ones down here that I'm pointing at are probably USB 3.2. They've kind of an all shade of blue. In fact, we can check the specs on this. Yeah, this has got USB 3.0. In fact, actually, this has 3.2 Gen 2, which might even be able to beat out the one that I have. But yeah, the 3.2 Gen 2 on the top. What you have here is you've got the USB 2.0 ports, although these are USB 3.0, it looks like. It's usually USB 2, then USB 3, and then there's a little USB-C port back here. And then down here, it looks like they've got 3.2 ports. So you do have to actually have the ports to be able to support and do this kind of thing. But I tell you what, if you're doing large files, like I can fill up 3/4 of that drive just what I have in a folder, and takes me maybe an hour to tops, where it would take me 16, 20, 24 hours, maybe even a couple of days on another thing. This is really, really useful stuff. Now, I've already kind of driven this in. I just kind of wanted to do a really general video. I don't know that anybody's even gonna really find this interesting or jump onto it, but I figured I'd do something a little bit different. I thought this would be kind of fun. So, guys, that is pretty much my video for the day. I just wanted to run you through some benchmarking on some thumb drives. I should say that external enclosure right there was better, and I mean, to get a USB 3.0 or a drive that could do what that thing could do at a minimum, well, how do I rephrase this? That external closure cost what a much slower USB drive would have cost. So by building my own, I saved money, and it's like 40% faster. In fact, maybe I can qualify that. Let's go back to the web browser one more time. I won't eat up too much more of your guys' time, but I think this is kind of interesting. If I wanted a 2 terabyte USB 3.0 drive, it'd be, of course, watch them make a liar. It'd be about what, 45 bucks, 30, 40 bucks. All right. And then if I went, because I can pick one of these up for probably about 15, and then I can get an enclosure, because I've been able to find those for like 15 or 20 bucks, and I've been able to find the NVMe drive enclosures for about what, 15? Sometimes 15, sometimes you can get them for like 15 or 16. So I've been able to get one of those for generally what it costs to get a USB 3.0, and my enclosure setup will transfer faster than, here, let me show you. See this gold one right here? This 3.0 2 terabyte, mine is faster than this one. Mine is faster than this one. If you're gonna do large capacity USB transfers, it's just doing an enclosure and doing an NVMe drive is just the best way to do it. You know what? I think that's it, guys. That's about all I wanted to show you for the day. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, just give me a message and let me know. It'll probably be a couple of weeks before I get another video out, but I thought that was fun. Have a great rest of your week.